Hello, and welcome to Just Another Real Estate Podcast, where we'll speak with Arizona's most successful real estate professionals to better understand their business, current market conditions, team and business building strategies, successes, and challenges. This podcast is brought to you by Dwell Inspect Arizona with your host, Sean Garvey.
Thank you for joining me. Today's guest on Just Another Real Estate Podcast is Stephanie Greenfield. She is the team lead of the Bray team. Bray team is at Berkshire Hathaway, office located at 32nd and Camelback. Thank you for being with me today, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
It's an honor to have you in here. I have known you for a long time, probably about 5 years now or so.
Yep.
And I don't initially remember how we connected, but it's just been such a pleasure and refreshing opportunity to work with you and, of course, your mom, and then watch you and your business and your team grow throughout the years.
Yeah, likewise. I think when we did meet, I think you were the only one inspecting houses at the time. So it was kind of, at least in Arizona, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome to, watch you grow as well and have all your inspectors come along, and it's been great.
Well, we certainly couldn't have done that without, the support of you and your clients and your team. And so, yeah, that's the natural path of a business, right? Especially in yours too. You start out as a solopreneur and you're doing everything from answering calls and washing all the dishes and sweeping the office and and licking all the envelopes to as demand grows and your need to continue to grow spreads, you add team members to help with those supportive roles and help spread your vision and your journey, right?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I was just actually licking some envelopes right before this, so I still have some room for growth, clearly.
Yeah. Well, that's also the position of the owner of the business, right? You have to do all the things that people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, do whatever it takes at any point.
And sometimes that includes envelopes.
Yep.
How long have you been in the real estate business?
Well, anytime anyone ever asks me that question, I always say my entire life.
Yeah.
Because really that is the truth. I'm actually a third generation realtor. And so I grew up in the, back of my mom's Suburban, going on showings in Arizona all summer long with my siblings, and if it was a long house tour, she would put us in the back seat and give us a Coke Icy and say, here you go, get in, be quiet, and learn the real estate business. But yeah, I mean, I got my real estate license when I was 18, just for the fact that I could, and I thought I knew all the answers to the test already. But at that time, I was an 18-year-old and said, I'm not selling real estate. That's what my parents do. No way, because I had all the answers when I was 18,
right?
Like most 18-year-olds do, right?
Sure.
And so I said, no way, Jose. And I went to Arizona State, got some degrees, moved to LA, and did some consulting out there for a couple of years that was totally unrelated to real estate, but had this moment in LA when I was working, 80 hours a week on week. And I actually ended up in the emergency room at UCLA with an ocular migraine. It
Wow.
was so intense that I couldn't read anything. I couldn't read my computer screen. And the doctor said, you need to go home and close your eyes and turn the lights off because this is going to hurt really bad really soon. And sure enough, it was the ocular part that was first and the migraine came later. But I was 24 and thinking to myself, why am I killing myself, literally dying at 24 years old for someone else's dream, someone else's business? And I moved back to Phoenix shortly after that and thought, well, what else do I know? I know how to sell real estate, I guess. So jumped in full time. And that was about 8 years ago. So I've been full time in real estate now. I'm working at it as a career for about 8 years.
There's a ton of follow-up questions on there, but the first is obviously you left a job where you were working 80 hours a week to take another job where you're working more than 80 hours a week.
Totally. I love that point actually. And people say that to
Yeah.
me all the time. They're like, why don't you work that now? Yeah, totally. I work probably more than that now, but I love what I do and I work for myself.
Yeah.
And so I have always been the type of person just going to work that hard. And so I thought, I need to do this for me, if that's just the type of person that I'm built to be.
Yeah, you control your own journey
Yeah.
in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, so your first year in business probably wasn't the traditional first year of business where you didn't have a clue what you were doing. You didn't know how to acquire leads or clients.
Right.
Did your did you join your mom right away in her business, your mom and dad in their business?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I did. So I joined my mom right away. My dad, by this point, didn't sell real estate anymore. He's got other
okay.
construction stuff going on. But anyway, joined her right away. At that point, we had our own brokerage, and it was just her. In fact, all of my siblings, except the one that isn't legally old enough to yet, have their real estate licenses as well. And
Yeah.
so it was her with her 3 kids with their licenses, and that was it
Oh, no
for
kidding.
this little brokerage. And so we worked together under that small brokerage for a couple of years. And you're right. I mean, the first year I just followed her around and, did her paperwork and did her showings and, did that kind of a thing because I didn't have my own clients yet. And then we can talk about, how I started to build my own client base if
Sure.
you want. But but at some point I did that, started building my own client base and said, hey, I really want to grow a team. And she said, well, that's great, but not under our teeny tiny brokerage. You won't.
Right.
Just too much, paperwork and overhead and on and on. So that's when we actually joined Berkshire Hathaway, and that was about 5 years ago now.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So you had that vision of growing a team for 5 years plus before making, and you shifted as a result of you had that vision and path.
Yeah.
From when you started.
Yeah, pretty much. We always kind of talk about her being old school and me being new school, and
Sure.
I can say that she's not offended by that because we have kind of come to accept that that's a good thing for our team. And it brings a lot of different aspects to it, but I always kind of thought, hey, I really want to take this core principle, this core business that you have, and really just blow it up into what I know we could be, especially being an Arizona native. I've been around for a long time. I know the Valley like the back of my hand. And so, yeah, that was my goal for a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. You also don't meet many natives in this age. A lot of people are transplants here. So that certainly gives you a leg up when you're kind of touring around, knowing pockets, knowing communities and stuff.
I do. I tell people all the time, it's one of my favorite things to do is drive clients around and show off Arizona. I remember when the 51 didn't go north of Bell and north of Greenway, because that's where I lived when that was being built. And just to see like the growth of the city over my life has been really amazing.
Transforming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Let's circle back. So, you're effectively your mom's assistant in the beginning, which is a great way to learn the business.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't have, I'm assuming she was a mentor, especially since you are still working together. A lot of people don't have that in the structure of their business. How did you make the shift from being, I can see what you're doing and I'm helping you, to now it's my turn to kind of emulate or take over?
Yeah, totally. So when we first started together, she really worked on, with clients, just people that she knew, really. That was it,
Sure.
And that's a great business, obviously, especially someone like her. I mean, she's been a realtor for 46 years now. She's a realtor emeritus, which is amazing. But she really just worked with people she knew. And at the time, I was, 24, 25, and I'd kind of already talked to all my friends, hey, anybody want to buy a house? And I, did a couple here and there, but that for me, that wasn't enough. So I was like, all right, how am I going to actually get some more business that aren't just, my mom's friends, right?
Right. Sure.
And so I actually started paying for Zillow leads back then. And this was in, what is that, 2014, 2015-ish timeframe.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a newer concept back then. I think that Zillow has obviously changed a ton over those years, but I do think in the beginning that people were actually going to Zillow to find a realtor and to find help. So I think that like the return that I got was much more achievable in those days than it would be today, type of thing. But nonetheless, I spent, whatever couple $100 I could a month on leads, and I just lived and died by my phone. I kept it attached to my hand permanently at all times. My mom jokes about me answering Zillow leads on top of a mountain on the weekends. Like we were hiking and I'm like, hello, can you hear me? But I just, I would answer at 11:30 at night if people called me. And I built like a pretty small core group of clients, but they turned out to be some of my best, like most amazing referral partners. My first ever Zillow lead client, whatever you want to call it, was actually a financial advisor. And he has, over the last 5 years, referred me double digit, number of deals. So I just like out hustled a lot of people that I knew to find deals however I could, whether it was Zillow or, joining networking groups or just things that nobody else really wanted to do or really wanted to put in the effort on.
I mean, that's a recurring point, that we're early in this podcast, and we've interviewed a handful of people, and the common theme is that in the beginning, and there's an evolution to it, but in the beginning, you're just out hustling everywhere, taking every opportunity that you can get, no matter when it comes in, and willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. And that's really phenomenal, especially starting with the encouragement and the structure of your mom being involved. And I think it's pretty incredible that you kind of zigged when she had been dagging the old versus new mentality. You went out on a limb and tried something different because you knew that the net you were casting was not developed enough yet. I'm assuming, 22, 24 years old, people aren't buying houses quite yet. They're starting to dip in there, but they're not there. Yeah. And I would imagine that's hard for a lot of young agents that are getting into the business, is that, it'd be great to sell all your friends' houses, but many of them aren't ready to buy a house yet.
Right. Sure. And it's so hard too, especially being young and not having any deals, any history of doing a deal. You're like, hey, Mr. 60-year-old friend of my, dad of my friend, will you please trust me with the largest financial transaction possibly of your life? That's really hard for a lot of people. And that's why I just, I would do any deal. Like I think at one point I went to this class where they were like, you could post a list or a link on Craigslist to all of the rentals that are available in your area and just say you'll help people with them. And I did that. I got bonkers calls, like ridiculous, weird.
Really?
But I would do any rental, like any rental in town, I would work because, hey, that was experience, and it wasn't necessarily like the greatest paycheck. Obviously, they still aren't, but it was like, hey, building rapport with people and showing people that you're willing to work hard for them. People don't forget that, especially something like rentals. They weren't easy then, they aren't easy now. And if you can help someone, if you can help someone get into a home in the competitive rental market, they're not going to forget you for that.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting approach. I haven't heard that one before. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the money's not great. And I don't even know what the money is, but it's not, I know it's a modest amount of money, but in reality, it is money and it's an opportunity.
Totally.
We look at, in our business, we look at every inspection as an opportunity to meet a buyer, a seller, a buyer's agent, and a seller's agent, make a good impression on all four people. And every time
Absolutely.
you do that, you're expanding your potential for
Mhm.
growing your business positively or negatively. So you
Right.
have to be careful.
Right. And I have a really good example of that type of mindset, just not saying no to anybody who needs help, any type of deal, any type of relationship. Early on, I started mentoring kids. I was like, you really at 25, you want me to mentor kids? Okay.
Sure.
But I started mentoring college kids at WP Carey at ASU, which is where I graduated from. And so I had this one kid who was really enthusiastic about real estate, and he wanted to put together this big investment fund and all this stuff. And I'm like, I would love to help you, but I don't know all the pieces that you need, right? So let's kind of form a little group for you of other mentors. We can all come together and support you on this journey. And so through that, I met two other people who were his other mentors, but we all got together to kind of help him collaborate on this project. And one of the guys who was the other mentor, he was like, yeah, so I just moved to Arizona not too long ago, and I have this property in Tempe that I need to sell. Would you be interested in selling it? And I was like, heck yeah, I would be.
Yeah. How fast can I sign?
Yeah, exactly. I think this was one of my first listings, maybe the first or second. And it was a $145,000 condo in Tempe, which what were we all doing 6 years ago? Not buying 1,000 of those. Right. But anyway, it was a $145,000 condo in Tempe, and I set it open like day after day after day, did everything. Eventually, he got this great offer from a lady that he really couldn't refuse. It was like a really great lease deal for 2 years. And so I got paid, something
a little bit
on the lease, right? Well, come to find out, this particular guy has been a real estate investor for the majority of his adult life and has since closed about $9 or $10 million in real estate with me since then. And all because I said, hey, I'm gung-ho, like I'll sell your $145,000
sure.
condo all day long, So you just never know who people are or what they want to do. And as long as you're just willing to show up for people and show them how hard you work, that will be rewarded.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. You never know where your next opportunity is coming from, but as long as you're out meeting people and creating some sort of productivity, there will be another opportunity. Totally. That's incredible. And which kind of leads me back to your old school versus new school comment, because you're taking a lot of old school tactics, or what I would consider to be old school tactics of hitting the ground and pounding the pavement, and then kind of mixing them with the opportunities created from new school, because it still is a relationship business, no matter how you post it on social media, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it really is. And I guess, a lot of that kind of old school versus new school, especially in the beginning, was for me, a lot of the kind of back end and office stuff. My mom was like paper files and file cabinets in her office and things like that. And I was constantly hunting for, CRMs and email tools and all of that kind of stuff to get more organized, because I knew that we were going to ramp it up, and I wanted to be ready when that came and have the right tools, so that we weren't trying to print contracts when we had 5 or 6 deals in escrow all at once,
Got it.
So that's kind of where that all began for us, the old school versus new school thing. And eventually, luckily, when we came over to the brokerage, they had so many of those tools, already available for us, so I could spend less time on them. But that was kind of the origination of the old school versus new school thing.
Got it.
And then of course the social media aspect too, which I'm sure you'll want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll jump into that in a little bit. I do have a question though, to head back to your financial referral, the financial client, or the client that was the financial advisor,
Advisor.
and he's been a referral, you said, 20 plus times. How do you, what's, why? I mean, he's throwing you lots of business. You're obviously showing up a good deal, but what's the secret sauce of why that keeps coming in your direction and keeps sending you clients and helping you expand your business?
Yeah. I think for him, and I guess it would be best to ask him, right? Maybe
Sure.
I should, because I think that would be actually a really interesting point. So thank you for that, because I will.
Yeah.
But he sent me a couple of like very difficult transactions, and I just handled it the way I would handle anything else. And I think he kind of knew that, especially if you're at the point where your financial advisor is telling you that you need to make some sort of real estate move. That's not always necessarily by people's first choice or like burning desire to do so, right? So I just kind of handled everything smoothly for him. And also because it's a relationship business, like you said, I just tried to stay in front of them as much as I could. Like I sent him birthday cards, his wife's birthday cards, both of his kids' birthday cards. I invite them to my client appreciation party every single year. I call them, text them, send them video text, like, hey, I'm just thinking about you. Hey, how you doing? Anything to just kind of be there. And also I just answer the phone when he calls, because so often he would call me on speakerphone. Hey, Steph, I have so-and-so sitting here in my office right now. They're going to call you tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'll be ready, And I think the fact that I always answer his call, I make a point to always answer his call, kind of shows him and the clients that, hey, I'm ready, I'm willing, ready to go.
But it also doesn't sound like you take that relationship for granted. Like you've worked for that connection, and you've probably moved past the finer points on it and become friends with them as well. But it sounds like you worked really hard to keep that relationship established and maintain front of mind with old school tactics. Sending birthday cards is not the new model. That's an old sales marketing model but it works. It's tried and true.
Yeah, sure. And one of his sons actually bought, he's bought now 2 houses with me, I think. And one time he was introducing me to a friend of his, and he said, you've got to meet Stephanie. I have no idea how she does it, but she sends me a birthday card every single year. I have no idea how she remembers. I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you that I use a CRM and it reminds me. I don't have your birthday memorized, unfortunately. But, you could use tools to help you look to your clients like they're the most important person in your life, which is how everybody wants to feel anytime they're dealing with anybody, right? In customer service or in business or anything.
You've mentioned CRM a couple of times too. Is there a specific CRM that you use, or is it?
I've tried a couple of them. I think none of them are perfect, but having one that you use is the most important thing. At this point, I have one that's through Berkshire Hathaway, and that's the one that I use because it has pretty good content already built into it. But that's what I always tell new agents, like, don't get into the weeds doing 11 different trials for 16 months while you try to figure out which one is perfect.
Sure.
Just get something and start. And even if it's just Excel, who cares? Even if it's a piece of paper, really, just get a piece of paper, get an Excel spreadsheet, write down everyone you talk to, remind yourself somehow to talk to them again. And that's at the very, very basic level. Like, that's all that real estate is. It's talking to people about real estate.
Yeah. Keep talking about it. And what else? I mean, you're documenting conversations so that you can sound intelligent when you call back. Birthdays, but you're starting simply, right? Like, you didn't start with all that data in there. You started probably name, where they live now, try and catch their birthday. And then it's just kind of compounded, and your needs have grown on it too. So you don't have to go out and buy, a Cadillac or Mercedes-Benz or whatever fancy cars out there.
No, not at all.
You started with something, piece of paper.
Just start, collecting information from people. And, Facebook is a really great tool. A lot of people forget about that. I'm not great at asking people what their birthday is, but if you can find them on Facebook, you can pretty much find their birthday.
Find their birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was an old coach that I had when I first got into the business, and he would call up and he would just say happy birthday, and they'd be like, I don't mean to embarrass you, but my birthday is not today. Oh, I had it down as my birthday. When is it? And then he write it down, and that's how he would capture their birthday back into it.
That's genius.
Yeah, so it gives you 2 calls to reach out to somebody.
That's actually really good. You just have one whole day of like, hey, happy birthday to the 50 people you don't know. That's awesome.
You obviously you have an obvious mentor, which is your mom. But have you looked, or do you have other mentors in this business that have helped you kind of grow, say, your team, your business, yourself, whatever?
Yeah, for sure. So early on, I met a guy named Devin, and he is absolutely one of my best favorite mentors. I just told him yesterday that I always tell everyone that he's my mentor. So I hope he's good with that. Even still today, he is. When I first got started in the business, really full time, he met with me every single week, held me accountable, taught me how to time block, taught me kind of the 5 groups of people that you could be talking to at any one time, or, the 5 kind of prospecting areas that there are. And he, when I had done 5 or 6 deals a year, he's like, Steph, you can do 12 deals next year. I believe in you. You've got this. You're going to crush at this, and just over and over and over believed in me and kept telling me that I could do it. And this was a guy who worked with tons of real estate agents. But I love him so much, and I can't thank him enough for what he's done for me, because in the beginning he believed in me, and just kept on saying you can do it, and it went from 12 deals to 24 to 48 and 80 last year, so so he's definitely a very influential person in my life. And obviously, yes, he did teach me some frameworks and basics of real estate, but besides that, he was like mostly motivational and encouraging.
Sometimes that's all it takes, but you give somebody a little bit of structure and say, this is what you should be doing.
Yep.
So do it, you can do it. And it lights a fire, caught you on the right day at the right time. That's really incredible that you had that opportunity to meet that person and took the advice and really followed through with it. And implemented the structure instead of just real estate's not just, printing out sheets and showing people houses. There's a process through it to get them to the finish line, right?
Yeah. I think the showing houses is that's the easy part, right?
Yeah. That's the starting part.
Most people think that that's like all that we do, but that's the easy part.
Yeah. Go into it. What are some of the other things? What's the harder parts? I mean, if you're showing people houses, that means they obviously have an interest, right? So so it's zeroing in on what they want, but then the let's sign the contract. Now what?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, finding out, just asking the right questions to find out what they want, where they want, lifestyle options, all of that is definitely, there's an art to that, I would say. Being able to kind of pair people with the right community, or just different areas of town even. I'll never forget, I had these one set of clients that came in from California, and they were like, we don't know where we want to live, somewhere in Phoenix.
Great.
Like, okay, that's
pretty big.
Very large space. Okay, we can do this. And so I asked them quite a few questions, and they had picked out a few homes. So we went from, in one day, we went from Gold Canyon to, Mesa, Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, Scottsdale, Phoenix. And I knew immediately when we were in Gold Canyon, I was like, this is the right place for them. This is absolutely where they should be. They love it. The desert, it's serene, it's beautiful, it's all the things. And they were like, well, we just really need to be sure. So can we go look at the one in Surprise? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we sure can. So we drove. It was like an hour and 10 minutes, I think, from Gold Canyon to Surprise. And I swear to you, Sean, the first house we went into, stood in the backyard. And what happened? 3 fighter jets fly right over the yard. And they're
Perfect.
like, okay, well, that does it for surprise. That was my record-breaking day in real estate, that I drove 271 miles in one day.
That's some serious miles.
Yeah.
That's great.
But anyway, going back to your question, just, helping people kind of figure out what they want, especially in a big valley that's, has so many different areas that are all great for different reasons. Showing them houses, showing them what to look out for, what to kind of look for before an inspection even happens, right? And then the finer points of getting in touch with the listing agent, finding out what the seller is looking for, what motivates the seller, being able to have some background to negotiate with them. And obviously the negotiation aspect of this business has changed drastically in the last 6 years, just based on market conditions. But being so hyper focused on the market and the local specifics of it, that I know, like, hey, this market is much different than it was a week ago. It's much different than it was 6 months ago. And it totally informs how you negotiate for your clients throughout the entire process, right? It's not just the first offer that you send, it's any follow-up like bins or items, or repair requests for people who aren't in Arizona. Appraisal issues that come up, closing, post-possessions. There's tons and tons of stuff that goes into it that is negotiated throughout the whole 30 or 45 days.
Sounds like a lot to juggle. And you're doing 80 a year. So that's almost 2 a week, 1.75 a week. That's a lot of management. Thank God you set up the systems in the new school manner so you can really handle that volume. You mentioned something certainly that is top of mind right now too. And I mean, we've seen some incredible shifts in the last 2 years. We've gone from, let's call it a normal market, to an extreme seller's market, to now it's shifting back into like maybe an even market, maybe slightly buyer advantage. Things are changing a little bit. How are you? Oh, and let's say interest rates dropped to almost nothing, and now they're higher than they were 2 years ago. Changing daily. So how are you helping your clients win right now? What does that conversation look like, either buy on the sell side or on the buy side or sell side?
I love that question. And I love that you asked it from the buyer and seller perspective, because while the market has taken some pretty drastic shifts in the last couple of months, I still think there's huge opportunities for buyers, and I still think there's great opportunities for sellers if you know what you're doing and you're willing to be strategic. But on the buy side, I'm definitely having conversations with people of like, look, in January we had 3,500 homes on the market, and now we have 19,000. So you have choices. You don't have to take the first thing that you see. You don't have to buy the cat pee house if you don't want to buy the cat pee house.
The cat pee house.
I saw a few of those, my friend. So that's one thing. You could actually sleep on it. What? You could sleep on a decision to buy a house.
Yeah.
Cool. It's been nice also for us as real estate agents, because it's not like, oh my gosh, a new house is on the market at 7:30. I got to leave dinner right now and go show it tonight at 8:15. Hey, let's wait until tomorrow morning. We could do that now. But also just being able to have a little bit of negotiating power back for buyers. One thing that we're doing a lot of right now is getting some seller concessions to buy down interest rates, because it keeps the value of properties pretty stable rather than doing a price reduction. And it helps buyers get over that shock, right, of the 5 or 5.5% interest rate. Even though historically that's still great. When we've been used to 2 and 3 and 3.5 for the last 2 years, 5 kind of feels like a shock to buyers.
Sure.
So just being kind of aware of those different tactics is huge. I mean, I've sold homes in the last couple of weeks that have been in the 300,000 range and the 700,000 range, and both of them got seller concessions. So just letting buyers know what that means obviously is great. And on the sell side, pricing now matters more than it's ever mattered before. 6 months ago, we would look at the comps and then we would say, okay, well, we'll price it a little bit above the comps because we know we can get it. That's probably where it's going to sell. And then we would be wildly surprised because we would have somewhere between 5 and 20 offers, and, it would end up way up here. And,
Sure.
What's happening right now is a lot of sellers are still pricing things here, expecting the bidding wars, right? So they're pricing in the bidding war that isn't
Right.
happening anymore. And so
Interesting.
that's why we're seeing so many price reductions, is because people are trying to still think we're in January and build in the bidding war into their price, and we're just not seeing that anymore. So if you're willing to, be strategic, price correctly, where the comps actually support, and be creative with some seller concessions possibly, or doing pre-inspections are coming back, you can really get ahead of a lot of issues and still sell really smoothly and really quickly.
So the bottom's not falling out yet.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm sure you hear that question
Sure.
and concern all the time, right? Of, is this a crash? No, and in fact, for the last 4 months, our inventory has been climbing every single week. And as well as our under contract homes have been not necessarily dropping, but not increasing. And just this week on Tuesday, we actually had a final uptick in the under contract number, which is good. I mean, to me, that kind of signals like, hey, maybe this is where we start to really level instead of this, I don't want to call it a free fall, but instead of this like wildly accelerating inventory that we don't know where it's going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 08 numbers were like 50, 60, 70, 80,000 houses for sale.
Right.
One thing that I thought about actually while you were saying that is that people that are concerned with higher interest rates, sure, the price has gone up, but the number on the house, say it was $500,000 6 months ago, that was closing at $600,000. So yeah, you're going to pay more interest rates, but you were also paying a lot more for the house, and maybe you had to come out of pocket cash because it wasn't going to appraise,
right?
To make up the difference. So your monthly payment might be a little bit higher, or even a fair bit higher, but you're getting what you're getting. If it's 500, you're getting pretty close to 500, or maybe even a little less, maybe a little more. Who knows?
Right.
But now there are options and strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. And some people, have you heard of a 2-1 buy down at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, that's like, some people are mixed about it, about how they feel, but basically it's buying down the interest rate for 2 years. Instead, and then at the end of the 2 years, it reverts back up to whatever it would be.
Whatever it was.
The idea being sometime in the next 2 years, they're going to go down and you're going to refi, right?
Sure.
And so there's a couple of different products like that. I mean, there's the buy down, there's also ARMs, which are coming back, adjustable rate mortgages, where, it incrementally goes up and up every year or so. Again, the idea being that rates aren't going to be this forever. Right now we're trying to curb inflation, and
sure.
So sometime they'll hopefully go back down and you can refinance. And if it's a house that you like, then maybe don't worry about the payment being a little higher than you would like it for right now, because we know in the future that that'll
drop
change.
back down. Does any of that creativity scare you?
No, I don't think so. Actually, I'm really impressed by the real estate industry as a whole in general in the last 6 months, just because these things, 2-1 buy downs and ARMs, aren't new. They were being used before the market that we've been in for the last couple of years anyway. And so that might be the scary thing, right? It's like, oh no, we're doing financing things that we were doing in 2005. That sounds scary. But also Dodd-Frank is a thing that exists now, and I don't know about you if you've tried to get a loan lately, but it is not easy. They are going to, ask for everything except maybe a blood sample these days. And it's way stricter. And so it doesn't scare me. I think it actually impresses me how fast the industry has bounced back to like, hey, let's figure out good ways to still get people into homes.
Well, the timing was all, the slow down, increase the prices, we'll call it the peak for now.
Sure.
It happened in, May, June, and July. It started to peter out in May,
Hmm.
but then it really slowed down quite a bit in July.
Yeah,
But that's all historically our slowest months anyways.
totally.
And like the peak of inflation, where it is today, was also peaking right at that time too. So it was kind
Right.
of the perfect storm of events. Now, who knows what could happen in the future, but
Yeah.
at least looking back in the rearview mirror, it certainly seems like we're kind of righting the ship a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And, frankly, I think we have kind of forgotten that we have a little bit of seasonality. Well, we have a lot of seasonality in our
Yeah,
market. And I think we have forgotten about it a bit because, 2020 was COVID, 2021
yep,
was COVID, and nothing was normal in those years, and so we didn't have seasonality. In fact, we had the opposite of what our normal seasonality is. And
right.
so it kind of went away for 2 years, but now we're going back to that, like, all right, it's the end of August. People are going to come back to town soon. And so I'm with you totally. I think that's what we're
Yeah.
seeing.
And it's easy certainly to forget of our seasonality. I think it's more exaggerated in a post-COVID world because people are traveling
Right.
longer and farther. Um,
Yeah.
and and I also think it's easy to forget because a lot of other real estate markets that have cold weather, their seasonality is November, December, January, February, even further into that till the snow
Mhm.
melts.
Mhm.
And we
Mhm.
don't have that, so we go outside and it's sunny. And why aren't people buying houses right now? Well, they're not
Right.
here.
Right. A really good example of that. I just booked a trip to Chicago for
Uh-huh.
Thanksgiving with my husband. I've never been to Chicago, which is hard to believe, but I'm excited. And I was like, "Do you think we should get some traveling cases for our golf clubs so that we can golf?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"You can't golf in November in Chicago." I'm like, "Oh, November's the perfect time to golf. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?"
That's why all the people from Chicago
Yeah,
are in
exactly.
Arizona. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I see you, a big strong arm of your business, and you mentioned it, is social media. Tell me about some of your strategies as you develop campaigns through social media or for social
Mhm.
media.
Mhm. Well, first of all, I am a huge proponent in real estate of doing things that you like to do.
Yeah,
Um, some people like cold calling, some people like door knocking. I do not like either of those
yeah,
things. I don't want anyone calling me that I don't know, um, you know, weirdly to ask me if I want to do something for them. I
sure.
also don't want anyone appearing at my doorstep. And so for me, those two things are just not normal, or not inherently like comfortable to me. And so when I kind of got over that fact of like, well, I'm not going to do things that make me miserable, what can I do instead? Social media
Interesting.
became the very obvious choice. I like social media. I have fun on Instagram. All my friends are on Instagram. Um, it's a great way to keep in touch with people. So I realized that I wanted that to kind of be my main thing. And
Okay.
it's not necessarily that I get a ton of brand new clients from Instagram. Honestly, it's just my way of keeping in touch with my sphere, and keeping in touch with people who already know me. Now, occasionally I do get clients who find me because of hashtags or whatnot, and those are awesome.
Yeah, that
Um,
doesn't hurt.
it does not hurt at all. I do I haven't done it in a little bit, but I would do these home tours where I would just take a bunch of pictures, 3 or 4 pictures of the house I was showing, describe it, and then say, guess the price.
Yeah,
And people loved that. Like, I got so much interaction with people. And then, I'm never really like, hey, do you want to buy or sell a house? No, it's just kind of me being present in the real estate market, them hopefully realizing, oh yeah, she's busy in real estate, she's doing a lot of stuff, she knows Phoenix, um, that kind of a thing. And so it's a more subtle sell for me. But I really just try to focus my social media on, like, A, being a real person, being
Yep.
myself, not being forced, not a ton of real estate. It's sprinkled in, but it's not everything. It's mostly my dogs and like restaurants and wine or beer or whatever, both. And then some other, some real estate stuff sprinkled in. And I think it's just, for me, it's the most authentic that I know how to be. It's also an amazingly powerful tool because A, it's free, and B, you can reach everybody that you know and then more, especially with video. Yeah, quickly, right? And so that's been kind of my main way actually of informing my client base, my sphere of what's going on in the market. I just flip my little camera around and do a quick video. It auto populates the subtitles and we're off to the races.
Do you have a ratio that you use? So do you have, 80% personal, 20% real estate, or is it just kind of psychosomatic? That's not right, but
let's go with it. It sounded really good. Psychosomatic.
Yeah. Is it just kind of like, I need to back it off a little bit, I'm doing too much real estate, more personal, like you just kind of have your own meter on it?
Yeah, I just kind of flow with like what feels right with it. I don't really have a ratio. But I try to not put an actual house picture in my feed like more than once every 3, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's a ratio.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, all right. I do have a ratio. Thank you. 1 to 3. Next question.
Yeah. I mean, that was the metrics that I learned. Like, or even you go on Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook. So it's like 3, set people up with 3 non-real estate, and then you make a little sale or a soft sale or an ask for that business.
That's awesome.
So you were right on. You were dialed in on that. You had it somewhere.
And I didn't even know. Look at that. I think the other thing too that has been helpful for me is like, because a lot of times it's like, well, what do I post? That's the thing that so many realtors always ask me, like, when you do social media, but what do you post, right? Just because you want to write something that's informational about real estate doesn't mean that it has to be a picture of a house or a picture of, real estate, right? Like, I'll often do a picture of me and my dogs and say something about the market like that, or something about a park, or something about local this or that. And the picture is really just for attention, that like grabs people. And if you have a good first line, then you're like, oh, what's Stephanie talking about with her dogs today?
Is there a platform that you prefer, or platforms? How actively are you working different platforms?
I am mostly on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram is the majority of it. I know a lot of people are doing TikTok, and admittedly, I love TikTok. I love watching TikTok. I just I don't really make them on there because I make reels on Instagram instead. Tool just seems a little bit more, I don't know, easy to use for me. So those are my 2. Facebook, obviously, I have a lot more people on Facebook, kind of like anybody that I meet and need to figure out their birthday. I find that
without the fake call.
Yeah, without the fake call. But that's a good one.
Do you are you interacting on Instagram with other people too? When somebody picture, a potential client, their child kicks a goal, good goal, Timmy. Beautiful dogs, Ellie, whatever it is. Are you fully integrated in that too, or is it just kind of set it and forget it?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's got to be a 2-way street, right? With conversation. Plus that satisfies the algorithm, the mysterious algorithm, that I'm sure is less mysterious to other people who really, really understand social media. But all I know is that there is an algorithm, and that if you interact with people, that kind of puts you at the top of the page and puts you at the top of the list for stories and that type of stuff. So I definitely try to interact with people. I have a lot of conversations with clients and friends in the direct messenger part of it too. I just set up a dinner with clients last night because of Instagram, or on Instagram, I guess. So
What a great tool.
it's awesome.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago that, or I heard a long time ago, they're paying the smartest engineers in the world tons and tons of money just to get you to spend 5 more minutes on social media.
Yeah.
And when you look at it like that, I mean, if that's the keys to the castle, if you spend just a little bit more time on there, then they're going to think you're relevant and you're interacting more. They're going to think that you're more important, and you are more important, but they're going to think that your account is more important.
Right. What about you guys? Are you guys using all the platforms?
We are. So this will go up on YouTube
Cool.
with closed captioning. And then when we take the recording from that, we'll post this on our website, which then Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast then grabs it through an RSS feeder, whatever that is. So podcast grabs it. We do probably primarily posting on Instagram, which then you push it through Facebook. We try and do a little bit of stories or reels. I don't know, whatever they're calling it now. I guess the videos are now reels and the stories are still stories. And then have been dabbling a little bit with TikTok too. It's not as consistent as I would personally like, and we'll probably work towards that as a goal moving into the next quarter, next year.
Right.
But quite honestly, I'm in a network and a business that doesn't use it really at all. And so I certainly see the power of it, even in sporadic use.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity there. Obviously, if not a lot of people are doing it, right?
Yeah, there are some that are actually kind of shining through, even on YouTube a little bit. And even in TikTok a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. Like they'll do a flash of a water heater, and then maybe like for 3 seconds, and then they'll say, "All right, what's wrong with it?" And their comments will explode, and then their views will explode too. So that's pretty interesting. Are those quality leads? Probably not. I personally think that Instagram, for our business, the Instagram is probably a more quality lead, where your business, your potential person is anybody that wants to buy a house. And it's not, it can be a shotgun approach to capture that. But then you also have to dial down into anybody that's really actually going to buy a house.
Right.
So those are kind of where we're directing into it. We don't have a ton of views on YouTube. We have a sizable group on Instagram. Not yet. That's true, and it's consistency. So it's been a work in progress, but everything's a work in progress always.
I personally love the ones that you do that are like weird stuff, and funny stuff. Like the one I think I have saved it, that video that you had of the one where you turned on the bathtub and the thing shot off. That's like one of my favorite Dwell Inspect videos of all time. I show people that all the time. So more content like that, please.
I always call it the shock and awe. The shock and awe always has the most resounding. The funny stuff that we see, or the crazy stuff that we see, always gets the most activity. You get on and talk about that's true. We usually try and wait a couple of days or maybe even a week or so after the inspection to let some time pass, so because we also understand that we're in someone's home and it's personal to them too.
Of course.
But that type of stuff resonates really well. We can get on and talk about how an HVAC system works, and it's like melatonin for people. They're out.
Tonight's sleep meditation podcast. We'll be talking about how an HVAC works.
We recognize that really early.
Good job. That's awesome.
So that's really impressive. You've talked about building relationships, whether you knew it or not, through early connections of answering the phone, sending cards, developing spheres and influence on social media. What are a couple of quick keys that you use to develop a quick an immediate attraction, a relationship, and to a long-lasting relationship where you're getting referrals for years?
I think just trying to find some common ground with people as quick as you can is always a good way to do it. I love doing open houses for that reason, because I'm instantly like searching for something in common with those people and trying to kind of break down the wall. And so I love doing those. And whether it's like, they're wearing a Cubby shirt or something, or, wearing a U of A hat, and I kind of give them a little Go Devil sign. People are, I think so often we think of like us as a real estate agent and them as a consumer, right? But we're all just people, and just trying to find some common ground with people and then make them feel like they're the most important person. Can't go wrong with that.
No, be there, answer the phone.
Yeah, answer when they need you.
I learned that when I was bartending years and years ago, and somebody said, who's going to give you a better tip, your friend or just somebody you don't even know? And make friends with them really quickly. And some of the fastest connections you can make is, where you're from, what are your favorite sports teams? What do you like to do on the weekend? Just really simple questions, and listen. And then they'll open up, and it creates an immediate connection.
Totally.
So it sounds like you've used that well in your business.
People love to talk about themselves, right? So just keep the questions coming, and they'll tell you. And when they tell you, like you said, listen, and and hear them, and try to figure out like what they need and how you can help them get what they need.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that you bartended. I forgot about that. I did too.
Yeah. I think I personally think that everybody at some point in their life should work in a restaurant, because it's like,
I've said that for years.
A really chaotic ecosphere of madness, where it's high stress and everybody's trying to work on a team and needs to work for themselves, and people can get very happy and very angry over the silliest things, and then you also throw in some cocktails into the mix, and now you have adult babysitting. It's like it teaches you a lot about people really fast.
Totally agree. I'm sure you and I could talk on hours on hours about bartending stories. I bartended in Old Town in college, so
that'll do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. Let's shift gears real quick. We got to talk a little bit about home inspections.
Yes, let's do it.
That happens to be something that we do.
Yes.
What
very well, I might add.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's it. That's all we need to talk about.
Okay.
Right. What do you like most about home inspections or home inspectors?
That is an excellent question. I would say I really like home inspectors that are not inflammatory. And, by that, I mean, technically everything is fixable. It just depends on how much it's going to cost and if you're willing or able to do that. And, I've been in some inspections, not you, where the inspector is like, oh my God, this is terrible, and inputting their own opinion of the matter into the situation, which ultimately you guys are really good at giving the facts and, and then like letting the client and the team figure out how to categorize the facts and what level of importance they are. And so I think early on I had a couple of like very inflammatory inspections where something as silly as like the wrong TPR valve was like this big deal that was going to blow up a sale, and so it became very important to me early on to have inspectors who understand very much the actual house and all the workings and everything, but then also deliver it in a way that's educational and friendly and not scary.
Yeah. Yeah. So that knocks the second question out too, because I can tell what you like least about home inspectors. You have what I call a high IQ, and I think that comes from paying attention at home inspections and being there too, or a high home IQ. What are some things that you have learned working with home inspectors? Because I also heard you say a while back, which was, things that will come up during the inspection or before the inspection. So it sounds like you're going through the house looking for, some potential red flags too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that just comes with, with practice and years of going to the actual inspection. I make it a point to try to learn something every time I do go to an inspection. And I do. I mean, I learn something every single time, whether it's like, I remember Jeremy specifically at one point teaching me about termites and how they need water on their bodies every 72 hours, and things like that now inform me when I'm out with clients, like, oh, look, this is a termite tube. By the way, they need water on their bodies every 72 hours, and that makes me look great because they're like, wow, how do you know that about termites? That's weird. But yeah, I mean, just kind of looking for those. I was in one just last week where, unfortunately, I guess I'm not supposed to say that, but unfortunately they didn't use you guys. And
that's okay.
I actually felt like I was kind of helping the inspection walkthrough go along, because they were using all of these, they were using like the industry slang and some like, abbreviations and stuff. And I was like, oh, by the way, that means this, or, oh, by the way, do you guys know what a GFCI is? And just, like kind of stopping them along certain points to say, hey, could you please explain that? Because these are first time home buyers. They've never owned a home before. Can we make sure that they understand what you're saying? Because I'm looking at them and they're just like, what's happening?
Face covered. Yeah. Blank.
Yeah. And so like, obviously the actual information is very important, but the explanation and the delivery of that is even more important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to do, and it's easy to forget sometimes, but we're only covering, a couple of thousand things in a couple of hours, and then trying to explain it to the client in an hour. And it's also easy to forget that we have to hand your client back to you. And so I think, quite honestly, the way in which we designed it, we took the optics of a restaurant experience, or even from bartending. And you want to make quick friends and explain things that are really simple for people to understand, and take them through that experience so that we hand it back to you, and you don't have a mess of emotions and questions. Sometimes you do.
Right.
Not every inspection is perfect, and not every house that you go to buy is perfect for that person.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of a follow-up question to that. What do you think how does like a new agent get that experience? I mean, you're seeing maybe an inspector 80 times a year or so. So you start to understand that, and you develop the methodology and how you're supposed to behave at an an inspection. But that new agent is like going to be a deer in the headlights with their other client, especially if a new agents often attract newer home buyers, maybe.
Yeah. If I was new and didn't have a team, I would just go find some of the top producing agents in your office, or some of the nicest, or some of your friends, or whoever it is that's in real estate that and say, hey, I would love to come to your next inspection with you. I'll just watch, like I won't say anything, just let me come and listen, because they really are so educational, and a lot of the things that come up on every house, like the TPR thing, or the high loop on the whatever, the age of the AC, or the age of the water heater, right? If you go to enough inspections, those are things that show up every time. And then at some point you begin to take that from, okay, I'm just going to hear about this in the home inspection, to, hey, while we're out looking at houses, let me just peek, and because I know where to look for the age of the water heater. I know where to look for the age of the AC, or I can open the thing and under the sink, look, there's no high loop. And it builds you credibility, but it also, going to those inspections, increases your own knowledge for your clients. And like I said, I mean, yeah, I did 80, well, they weren't all buyers last year, but
Right.
50, 60 some home inspections last year. And I learned something at every single one. So
Yeah.
it's not like you can ever know all of it. That's why we have you.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I love that you've taken that stance in there and kind of pre gathered some information for your clients while you're in the process of making the deal, so that you have less surprises through that process.
sure. In Arizona, I think one of the biggest ones is the roof, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Roof.
you know,
AC.
and roof and AC, yeah. And I always tell people, look, I'm not a home inspector. I can't tell you the age of the roof. I don't know, but I can tell you that if this is a 1980s house with a tile roof and they're not advertising that it has a new roof,
Better have a new one.
probably going to be original, you know?
Yeah.
And that definitely softens it when we get to the inspection and the inspector's like, oh, hey, by the way, the roof's original.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we expected that.
But if you're new, you don't know that, just go to some. Go in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I'd be happy to let anybody come to mine.
in the past, we've had new agents do that, or met new agents in that respect. We haven't done it in a long time, but we've hosted like mock inspections where we'll take agents through a house and do that as well.
That would be
So
awesome.
I mean, it's been my long-term goal is to create more informed agents about how to get those data tags and what to look for and red flag electrical panels, because I think it empowers you. I think you're right on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, that's such a great way to give back to the industry too, you know. And who was it that just said this the other day? It's not their quote, but anyway, someone reminded me of a great quote, which is a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah,
you know, and if
sure.
we as an industry are all committed to like teaching each other how to be better all the time, then it's just going to make us all as an industry better for our clients. They'll have, you know, better value of what it is we do.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. How do you stay organized? You got a lot going on.
So I am kind of a planner fanatic. I love, as much as I am like a techie, you know, person, I love a paper planner. And I love crossing off things on a sticky note. Like there's no more satisfying feeling than that. Like, look at this thing. All my sticky notes. Very, very, I love that. But a couple of years ago, I was looking for my new planner, which is a very exciting thing at the end of the year. Like, yes, I get to get a new one.
Started November, like shopping on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's it going to be? What book am I going to carry around for the next year of my life?
Oh, yeah. That's a big commitment.
It's a big decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was looking everywhere and looking, and I couldn't find anything that I liked. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write my own. And I did. And I printed it at my office, which I'm sure that my office manager because I also printed one for all of the members of my team. I have it, the old one. It's sitting right here. It's pretty funny because it's like falling apart. It's like OG, you know, binder. And so I wrote that for my team members. And then I was out somewhere, I carry it around all the time. And an agent friend of mine was like, where did you get that? I was like, well, I wrote it. And she said, well, can I have one? Sure, you can have one. She's like, you should sell these. And so last year I did that with a business partner, friend of mine. We copyrighted them and printed them with like a real printer, not at our office. This is what the new version looks like now. It's called the Real Estate Planner.
Amazing.
And basically it's just like all the things that I learned how to do as an agent and structuring that in a way that you can look at weekly. It's basically a time blocking planner that has time blocking on one side and then your activities on the other side. And it's a way to track how many people you talk to, you know, ultimately, like I said earlier, you know, real estate, being successful in real estate is all about talking to people about real estate. And so tracking how many people you talk to, whether it's through text messages or DMs or social media or cold calling or whatever you want to do, right? But knowing how many people you talk to. And then the other thing it has in there too is some really good social media ideas, because that was something that I found agents saying all the time over and over, was like, what do I post? What do I post? So my business partner and I came up with 365 ideas for what to post on social media, which is in that planner. And then also 52 ideas for video as well. So that's once a week.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk about your gift to rise the tide, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, you know, Arizona is an interesting place to be in real estate. And I'm sure you know this, but licensees have only continued to increase this entire year, even through this new market that we're in. There's still more and more licensees getting their license every year.
Sure.
And, you know, and the schools don't do a great job of teaching you what to do once you get your real estate license. It's like, okay, you know how big an acre is and how to calculate loan amortization, but where are you going to get a client?
Right. Exactly.
And what are you going to do with that client? When
You're
you
licensed to be in business, but you don't have a business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you know, it's not for everybody. The planner, you know, it's obviously it's like fairly social media focused,
Sure.
but for me, it's just a structure that really works. And I wanted to be able to share that with people.
Thank you for sharing that. Where do people find it? Where does someone go buy that?
I will send you the link, but it is thehomeconnection.shop.
Say it again. I think it cut out just as e-home connection.
The like the
Okay.
home connection.shop.
Perfect.
There's a www
Perfect.
there too in front.
Of course. And this has been an incredible conversation. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too.
It's a lot of fun getting to know your story. Where does somebody reach out to you for questions, mentorship, team questions, real estate questions, business inquiries, anything?
Yes. Well, Instagram is the easiest way to find me, Stephanie Greenfield AZ. Also, my cell phone permanently affixed to my hand, as previously mentioned. It's on airplane mode right now, so that I wouldn't be tempted to look at it during our podcast. But my cell is 602-989-6057. Happy to help.
Amazing.
Whoever I can.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you soon.
Thank you for listening to Just Another Real Estate Podcast. For the latest episodes, please subscribe and be sure to follow Dwell Inspect Arizona on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. To contact Dwell Inspect Arizona, call us at 480-867-4599. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, email our team at office@dwellinspectaz.com.